Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. This is Jessa, and I am glad you're here. Hey, if you haven't heard about it yet, probably have, but maybe it's your first visit to my podcast. I have a free webinar called How to Help Your Partner Want More Sex Without Just Making Them Feel More Pressure. And, you know, it's basically addressing desire discrepancy, which is, well, first of all, it's universal, but it's the most common presenting concern in couples sex therapy. You know, one person wants more sex than the other. And it's a webinar that's going to cover some of the mistakes, the most common mistakes people make that keep people stuck instead of working together on a sex life. And while it's sort of aimed at the higher desire person, because these mindset shifts might have to start with them, it's going to be a great webinar no matter which side of the coin you're on. You're going to appreciate it, and I think you could find it really helpful. So if you're interested in that, go to intimacywithease.com/training. Maybe a nice segue into today's topic, which is joyful monogamy. How do we keep a thriving, passionate sex life over the course of a lifetime together if you are in a monogamous relationship? So my guest, Lynne Sheridan, wrote a book called The Birds and Bees of Joyful Monogamy. And she's going to talk a little bit about, you know, is this our basic nature? Are we fighting our nature to be monogamous? What are some of the benefits of it? And then really, how do we keep our sex life alive and vibrant over time? I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And before we start the show today, it is sponsored by Intimacy with Ease. It's a method to help otherwise happy couples achieve a sex life that is easy and fun for both of them, so that you can actually just enjoy your sex life with zero stress. For more information, if you want to watch a brief little training video that's available, all of that, go to intimacywithease.com. So Lynne, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Jess. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I have done several episodes about open relationships, and I'm so excited to do one about monogamy. Let's balance this out. I think people are maybe less familiar with open relationships, or it's a new concept, but, you know, diving into monogamy and how we keep that passionate seems really important to me. So
yeah, it's so funny that you say that, because 80% of the original societies, our ancestors were polyamory, polygamous. They were not monogamy.
Right.
So I think in our day and age, with what we were brought up with, monogamy seems more the norm, but it's not.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So why did you choose the topic for your book? Like, what's it? What made you dive into this?
I think multiple things. One, I think that monogamy sometimes is presented by Hollywood that it's supposed to be incredibly easy. Hollywood's version of being in a relationship is hysterical. Just there's this big romance. And then when we're in a monogamous relationship, we come home and have sex on the table and throw the dishes off the table, and nobody cares if the dishes are broken. This is complete fantasy.
Right.
And I think most people who walk down the aisle and get in a monogamous relationship are completely not prepared for it. They have no idea. They think it's supposed to be easy. They think that it's supposed to be natural. And most species, most mammals are not monogamous. Birds, I did my book, The Birds and Bees of Joyful Monogamy. I did it with birds because a lot of species of birds are monogamous. or they're periodic monogamists who are a season or so. And I'm not an ornithologist,
right.
But there's some amazing good information that we can learn as parallels between species that have both chosen monogamy. And it seems like it's more from a parental parenting. There's an urge across the board for mothering. And there's also an urge for parenting. And I don't think we talk about for the fathering, that the whole desire of the male of the species to know that their seed is their seed. And that seems to be, from a lot of theories that I've read, that seems to be the predominant as to why we end up in monogamy. It's more for knowing the child. And then from the female perspective or the mothering perspective, it is that there's somebody else who's in it with us, that they're not solely left alone to parent. Which in the birds kingdom is the same, that the father birds will sit on the nest and they'll warm the babies and they'll help with all the parenting duties. So it's a mutual endeavor. And I think that seems to be the best guess as to why we're monogamous largely.
So, I mean, there's books about, like what's our inherent nature? Are we intrinsically monogamous? Are we intrinsically open? Like, are we fighting? Do you think we're fighting our natural state to be monogamous?
Yeah. And the best I've got on that, I keep reading and I'm fascinated by it. I think it is a double-edged sword. I think we're pulled both directions. There's a pull to know that somebody is ours and that we're faithful to them and that we're in it together and growing old and romance. And then there's also this pull towards, we could call it whatever you want, proclivity, tasting new things. We have this terror in us. And I think we're drawn both directions. We're certainly not good at monogamy.
Right.
We are not, we're trying, but we are not really good at it.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from, lots of things that I coach on, which is ontology and the study of the being. And we are 0 to 8 years old. Our personality is formed, which is frightening to think.
Right.
For me anyway. When I first learned that, I was like, oh my God, I'm screwed. And not in a good way. Not screwing in a good way. Yeah. But it really is that the factors are family and our role in our family, whether we're the funny one or the smart one or the oldest responsible or the baby or kind of left to fend, or all of that gives us beliefs about ourselves and the world. Education, how our teachers related to us, how our parents related to us, gives us beliefs about ourselves and the world and other people. Watching our parents and what we thought romance was supposed to be or relationship was supposed to be or experiences if dad left may have an unconscious belief that I can't trust men. Or if dad left, you may have an unconscious belief that nobody's really going to be there for me.
Right.
And all these unconscious beliefs, what we know and psychology knows, that are formed in those first 8 years cause everything from we think we're conscious. We think, most people that say like that we're 10% conscious. And the studies are more towards 96% of us is our unconscious that is running. We think our thoughts and our...
Right, we think we have free will and choice and decision and we're on autopilot.
Yes, so then somebody can have like if they have an unconscious belief they can't trust men or that the person's going to leave them no matter who it is, they may unconsciously keep generating somebody with a story that matches the belief that is going to leave them.
Right.
And then they end up with this pattern. So I think that's a ton that's going on, that people are not really present to how is their unconscious generating what they have in their life right now. And then attachment, the other big one, that, our relationship comes from our attachment in our first years, our formative years. And in the by old days, I mean, like, I don't know, 150 years ago, that the mom used to look eye to eye with the baby. And there was this beautiful bonding and breastfeeding and all of that. And the mom always carries more of that than the dad. But there is a normal breaking standpoint where the infant will break the gaze. The infant almost, if you've had a baby or if you've been around babies, they get blissed out. So they're like looking at it and they go, oh, and they can't take any more joy and they turn away. And then there was a normal amount of time that the mother broke away. All of that has gotten out of whack. So with the advent of the modern age and competing attentions and something on the stove and something on the television and God knows the cell phone has just been beyond detrimental. So we're not attaching at the level at which we were 100 years ago. We are insecurely attached. And so we have a harder time staying in, allowing ourselves to be seen intimate with another. And that's undermining our torn desire with monogamy.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, how do you relate these early childhood experiences to shaping of our personality and our attachment style to choosing monogamy or not, or how we're doing monogamy, or not? Like, what are some of the correlations?
I have seen, and I've worked with so many people who, unfortunately, I think a lot of times human beings won't look at the unconscious. We do all kinds of patterns, coping strategies, whether it's avoidance or denial, and God knows 2020, we could go like crazy on these coping strategies we're doing that are not always healthy, but they keep us protected from facing it. And oftentimes in the trainings that I do, which is highly experiential, I'll have somebody who's in their, 60s, and they're kind of like, they have a moment of, oh my God, I did it over and over and over again. My dad being one of them with 3 marriages, and he did his pattern over and over and over again. And he couldn't see it until the end of his life that he was repeating some of the negative beliefs from his childhood, the lack of attachment, the wanting to, not his mom not running the show and him wanting to be the one that was in control. So I think it takes a lot of humility, God, from my own part, humility of being willing to look at what are my results. I can think my conscious mind wants something one way, but if the results keep showing up another way, well, then, I can't argue with reality. I can, but it's not going to be fun.
So you're saying these early experiences might get us replaying patterns where we're not being very good at monogamy, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like people say, oh, I have commitment issues.
Right.
Well, they didn't they weren't born with commitment issues. They didn't come out with that.
Right. There's no gene for that, right? Yeah.
That got shaped. And so that's now the thing. And so I think all of this is how it affects and impacts whether we choose it or don't choose it or what we want. I have a friend in polyamory, and a lot of it was him running the show in his childhood. He didn't have a parent that was reliable, and he wanted to run the show, and he wanted to be the one and have people attending him. And, so he sees where that plays into play with his choice there. No judgment about whether one is better or the worse than the other. I always say, oh my God, I have a hard enough time communicating with one person in relationship. I can't imagine being successful with more than one.
Well, that it was interesting. I was thinking, I wanted to ask you, because in some of the books, they almost make it sound like monogamy is, well, either inherited from old, where a man would sort of own a woman to know that it was his seed, and there was this control aspect, like it wouldn't be an evolved choice to pick monogamy. And I was going to ask, but wait, what about the evolved or fully expressive, or I don't know what I even want to say, like a healthy choice for monogamy? I mean, I guess what I'm coming down to, the way you're talking, is whether people pick monogamy or an open relationship. Either one can be done from the best, like a healthy, conscious choice, or from not, like repeating old patterns, right?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So it's what you said. It's like, when I'm working with somebody with drugs and alcohol, it isn't the drug that is the bad. No, that's the bad thing. That wasn't, again, that was just a cocaine plant. It was a coca plant. It wasn't meant to be, or a marijuana plant. It's our relationship with the thing. Mm-hmm. So anything, whether it's my work, and, I can go prone towards workaholism, definitely. Work is not the breakdown. My relationship with how I'm relating to work can be the breakdown. So it could be with monogamy or polyamory? Where am I choosing this from? If I'm choosing it from authentic choice, from no thingness, from not based on something in the past, not decision, not cutting away, then great. And what are your reasons? And I want to be empowered and I want to own my sexuality or whatever it is. Great. It is where we're choosing it from that matters.
Okay. So what are some of the reasons people could make that healthy, conscious choice for monogamy? What are the payoffs? Like I heard what you say about parenting and being in it with somebody. But what other kinds of opportunities or gifts does monogamy bring?
Ah, God, I love this. I can wax poetic. I could cry.
Oh, good.
I could cry with this question. Yeah. I think it is unbelievably challenging. And I think from what I see, that the goal is not that we're ever going to solve the breakdowns. You know, John Gottman, relationship expert, he says that 80% of all marital arguments can't be solved, upwards of 80%. Mm-hmm. And so we're not solving, which is so masculine. And I want to say to my husband all the time, and I do say to my husband all the time, I don't need an answer on this. I don't need a solution. I just want to talk about it. So what happens is we're healing each other's wounds. Mm. And so over the course, we're all wounded. Everybody's walking wounded. That we made it out alive. And certain generations, it was more to make it out alive of than other generations. I mean, I look back on like our generation and think, oh God, they knew almost nothing. They knew almost nothing and the errors that they made. And then now we did overcompensation and there's the whole generation of the kids being overspoiled. All the errors that are made, all the wounds from our childhood, even the best parents, we can still have an idea I'm not as good as my brother or they're loved more. These are the beliefs that kids make up. And so those wounds, we walk around and they're raw spots. And then when they get hit by people, we get defensive or argumentative or lash out or try to push them away. That doesn't bode well for a relationship because the person we're going to pick inevitably, imago, Harville Hendricks, they're chosen because they're going to wound us in the exact same way our parents wounded us. So how do we not just endure that, but communicate it and hold each other's feelings and be interested of when we step on another person being, oh my God, I'm sorry. What just happened for you? And then them sharing it and us saying, oh God, that's the last thing I wanted. And I don't feel that way at all. Over the course of many, many years, that's healing. Mm-hmm. That you have another person that's willing to do that with you and for you. And you're showing them your worst at times. They're showing you their worst. And you're both saying, okay, I get it. I love you. That's okay.
Yeah. It reminds me of, it's making me think of when I was in grad school and I went to a very experiential self of the therapist kind of program. And so there was a lot of self-work in there and I really appreciated my cohort as learning partners. Some of the stuff was really hard and we triggered each other. We had these hard conversations, but we're all in it to grow. And, I came out with some of the dearest friends from that. And it seems like it's a similar thing. Some of the struggles of monogamy are part of what make it so rich.
Yes, it's like it is much like the therapeutic relationship and transference or countertransference. It is that somebody cares enough to hang in with you and gives you the message. You're lovable and you don't need to be perfect. And just like you and I just meeting each other, we don't know everything about each other. I could say something and you get offended and instead of being defensive or it becomes interested in tell me about that. What was that? And then, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I want to know where that hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is great in any relationship.
Hey, this is Jess. I'm just taking a quick break, and I want to make sure you know about the guide I wrote about how to talk to your partner about sexual concerns. This comes up a lot in my practice. People have struggles and it takes them so long to bring it up with their partner. They're afraid that that conversation is going to go badly. Their partner's going to be upset. The partner's going to be defensive, or they just don't know how to talk about sex and sexual problems. Common problem. So I wrote this guide that really helps you address this. It helps you prepare for the conversation, how to introduce the conversation, and then tips about how to actually get through the conversation so that you can change things with your partner as a team. If you are interested in this guide, you can find it at bettersexpodcast.com/guide. Again, bettersexpodcast.com/guide. Happy to send it to you. It also seems to me that exactly what you're talking about is really intimacy.
Yeah.
Right? We are in this thing together. We are seen for our best and our worst. Like, I don't know if you have a sort of a way you define intimacy, but how do you think about it? What creates intimacy?
Yeah, I think that's like the $1 million question.
Right.
In our world, definitely America wants to make intimacy sex. It's a collapse, or we want to. Right now, this next generation, we want to kind of fillet out intimacy and have sex without intimacy. And from Latin, it's profoundly within. And another way that they say is within est, the withinest place within, which is astounding when you think about it, and frightening. And it should be terrifying for most people, because it is, God, there is no more within place than that. So what that means for me is total transparency, letting our darkness show, and through our darkness, our light as well, and complete authenticity, that we are not contrived, that we're being all the way ourselves, even if it's humbling, or even if it's acknowledging, or we need to catch ourselves in the moment and say, wait a second, I think I was afraid there. Or I think, I'm sorry, I wasn't present. I was somewhere else. Or, that I think it takes tremendous courage. And I work with a lot of younger people on creating the partner of their dreams, people who want to get married, and they'll say, as we start to work on being authentic and authentic dating, they'll come back and report out on a date, or I'll look at their social media profile with them and I'll go, oh, no. That's, they'll tell me, no, I was totally authentic. But then they'll say things like, well, yeah, I was so pissed. They didn't even offer to pay the bill with me. Like, did you say that? No. Like, why didn't you say that? So all the ways we feel like we're being authentic and we're still wearing a mask. We're still not letting ourselves be seen.
Right.
And how on earth are we ever going to create an intimate relationship if we're not willing to really be seen, including, it's like that, the old days, the girl going on the date and, oh, I'll just have a salad. I'm not hungry. And then she goes home and like scarfs down a burger. She's starving, but she wants the person to think, oh yeah, I'm a light eater and so delicate. We're selling some contrived version of ourselves that's not the real deal.
So maybe this is a softball question, and there's not one answer to this, but how long does it take for people to be truly authentic with each other? Is this kind of thing, you meet your soulmate and right away you're fully authentic and the rest of your life is lived like that? Yeah. Or is it more like we take our entire life removing masks and getting truer and truer, or somewhere in between?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of work. I think it is a lot of continuous work. And when we catch ourselves not being authentic, when we catch ourselves lying to ourselves, putting on a face or whatever, coming clean on it the moment we catch ourselves, repairing it. And I think we can get better. There are degrees of it. If we were to right now, do a shared screen and pull up celebrities in certain interviews, we would have authenticity meter of wow, yeah, he seemed pretty authentic. Or wow, that was really courageous of her to reveal that and to acknowledge that she was afraid. And there are celebrities that are standing out for this right now that are really notable because they're not doing the contrived answers. And there are prices that go with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's switch the topic a little more specifically to sex within a monogamous relationship, because it is part of part of your subtitle, right? Is 9 Secrets of Hot Partnering.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts about how a couple keeps passion alive, how you keep sex interesting,
Well, there is, I know, Esther Perel, and, very controversial, for me, controversial, because I think, aspects, I'm like, oh God, I love what she's saying. I love it. And other aspects, But one of the things that I think she's on, she's spoken so beautifully and has resonated with our culture, is that we have this conflicting desire for mystery and adventure and with security and the known.
Yeah.
This is the pole that we were talking about between being monogamous and being in adventure land. And so I think we got to balance that when we're in monogamy. I also think we confuse passion, that often passion ends up in one weight, and that's the bedroom. That's with sex. And that we got all different kinds of passions. You are doing this podcast because of a passion. I'm a guest because of a passion, that a lot of what we do is our passion. So I think we get to one, light the fire under each other's passions across the board. My husband is an artist, and I know most of the time if I ask him what he's thinking about either sex or art. It would get toss up, but I gotta light a fire under that passion. And then I think us also being adventurous, willing to keep that mystery alive, willing to do fun things that are risky, stretchy, have fun with it. When I'm working with people with erectile dysfunction and aging sexuality, I think there is a big pressure on orgasm, ejaculation. The whole thing becomes about penetration, the act of sex. We lose all sensuality. We lose all play. So getting it off of that and having it be, maybe there are whole nights of just sensuality and feeding each other blindfolded and hours of just exploring each other's skin and not orgasming. Like Tantra has a lot with that, the prolonged pleasure and reverence for. And so I think giving permission and that requires time and space, which most couples don't have. And so from a pragmatic end, all the studies are making sex appointments, even though it's not romantic, taking turns initiating, that it isn't always, and taking turns on the tone of the encounter so that somebody can say, I want a quickie in the closet. The toddler's in the other room right now. We got 6 minutes. So let's just go. And somebody else can have a 2-hour candles, beautiful music, but that we have some flexibility regarding what we count for sex.
Yeah, it seems like we need to resist the pull towards a rut, right? Like so many couples, they have the way they have sex because it's the most efficient, it gets it done, whatever. And they stop thinking beyond that, right? I mean, it's so easy to settle into what's easy and natural and quick or whatever, efficient. And try not to always make sex efficient is probably I run couples programs, and one of my later couples program, because it's edgy, it's risky, and it's with a core group of couples, but I run different retreats. And this is one of my favorites because it's weekly stretches. It's putting them out on the field, like one of them that I love from Modern Family and has been done over the years, like role playing, dress up in as a way you would never dress. Go pick each other up in a bar like you're strangers. Titillate. Play with your role on the way you present yourself. And doing stuff like this ends up to be, for couples that have been in a rut, incredibly liberating, scary as all get out, in a lot of ways, and really fun and freeing. It does seem to me, I mean, I like what you were saying before about passions in all areas of life. And that if our fire has gone out just individually, it's going to be hard to be that playful. I'm not going to want to dress up and meet you in a bar if I'm beige, right? Like if I just have no fire going. So it does seem like so important to discover these things about ourselves and give ourselves that time, give our partners that time, because I would imagine some people find it threatening. You've got this other thing you're doing on Thursday nights out of the house without me, but that's part of what creates that fire, right? That space and that excitement and something new.
Well, I love that you said that. One of my best things, and this is so bizarre, is I was aged like 20 and 26, something like that. I realized I had a pattern of serial monogamy. I had 4 years and then break up. And then I also realized that when I'd break up, I would have these anxiety feelings being alone, and I'd almost immediately get back into another relationship. So at about age 26 and a half, I decided to date myself. And I decided to get really comfortable doing nothing. And I said, I have no business being in a relationship until I know what makes me tick. I had no idea how long it would last. And it lasted about 3 years, which was astounding. And I said no to every date I was asked on. And I went hiking by myself for miles, and I went to dinners by myself, and I really got comfortable with who I was and did work, did transformational work, did therapy, did all kinds of work on who am I and what is this? And I think that's a key. And I also think, for generations, we've had women setting themselves aside and not doing that work historically, that a lot of time women's in their 50s and 60s will say, oh God, now it's my time. I don't have to focus on my partner. I don't have to focus on the kids. What if I don't think we do that enough? I don't think we do that along the way that I've fostered when my husband, or like we do it with each other, when he said, I feel like a stall, and there's this, we were going to Italy and there's this artist, and I'm like, do a thing with them. And so he ended up doing a week and a half in a private apprenticeship. I went and met a friend, but this lights him up. He comes back more exciting and feeling confident and passionate. I love my dogs are getting involved. Apologies.
No problem. Yeah. And this is not something we do once, like in our 20s, and get all excited about who we are. It seems to me this is lifelong. Just like sex can get in a rut, our life can get in a rut. Go to work, come home, turn on the TV, go to sleep, go to Costco on the weekends. Not that I'm telling you what I do in my life, but to resist that pull to, what is it, inertia that keeps you where you are. It's like, how do I insist that there's something that's lighting me up?
Yeah, no. And I that's been my whole life, because I do the work of transformation. I do experiential workshops, and it changed my life because I was on a steady track of doing what I was supposed to do. And I think all of us, definitely during COVID-19, we can all get into this. Oh God, another day back into it. We got to push at it. We got to keep pushing it and learning and growing and finding we all get in our comfort zone, and the work I do is outside of our comfort zone, because that's where possibility exists.
Right.
It's not what is familiar. It's not, no matter what I have created or you have created or anybody who's listening, that's what you already know. It's already in your comfort zone. The exciting area is what you haven't created, what you don't know, what I don't know, what scares me, what pushes me.
Yeah. And so to embrace that for yourself and for your partner, to celebrate this for each other instead of feel threatened, or I've got to keep them, my partner back or contained or something. It's like, welcome that growth.
Yeah, right? No. I also think it's inane to be in a monogamous relationship or marriage. We get so worried about jealousy with our partner instead of, I am interested in what my husband finds attractive.
Yeah.
And he's interested in what I find. Oh, tell me about that guy. What is it about him? What is it about her? It's insane to think we're not going to find other people attractive.
Right.
And if I want to be my best partner for him and for myself, then I can say, yeah, I need to grow in that area. Yes, she does do that beautifully. You're right. She is stellar at that. That is attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other pieces of advice you have for long-term monogamous couples? Like, have we covered everything, or other thoughts about that?
COVID is doing all kinds of stuff right now with the divorce rate.
Yeah.
And with sexuality and all of that. I think, self-care is taking a higher precedence right now than it ever has. So, allowing self-care, and self-care for me doesn't just mean a bath or it doesn't mean reading a book. It means company of other people who stimulate me besides my husband. It means not putting everything on him. It means filling myself up and having rich conversations. It means extending outward in ways that we probably haven't. And I know that sounds odd during COVID, but really, like-minded people and challenging ourselves, and then push at the edges of the comfort zone, do transformation, a transformational program that really has you start to see, what are the beliefs I've made up about myself, about other people, about men, about women, about marriage, about monogamy, polyamory, whatever it is. What are the beliefs, and do they support me? Do they not support me? Pushing at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so tell people just a bit about your book and your programs, like what's available to people if they're intrigued with this conversation and they want to know more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My book, I run a 12-week program, Couples Thriving, working the chapters of my book because the homework is beyond rigorous. The homework is probably 5 hours a week of homework. And so it takes a big commitment for the couples to work on it. It also is transformative. And then I do 3 different levels of couples retreats. And I do couples intimacy, what we were talking about, which is kind of the risky end one, and VIP couples where we go to foreign countries. And all that is through my website, LynneSheridan.com.
Okay.
And then I also do all kinds of transformational things through Inspire coaching workshops. I'm a contract trainer. Sounds like a contract killer. I'm a contract trainer internationally with a lot of great training companies that I have links and can refer people to on how do I get engaged in pushing my own boundaries and accomplishing what I want.
Cool. I'll put the link to your website too on the show notes so people have that.
Thank you. Instead of people going, how do I spell that?
Yeah, exactly. Trying to write while they're driving or elliptical or something.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show with me.
Jessa, I am so incredibly grateful, and thank you for all the layers that you're doing of this topic, because we have a conflicted relationship with sexuality in this country in particular.
We sure do.
We sure do.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question-and-answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.